Hello, welcome to the Hobby Hour, episode 10. My God, we've been going a little while down. So my name's Stuart. I'm here with my good friend, Dan. And today we're mostly going to be talking about a bit of an overview of the old world rules. We've had 4 updates now. We wanted to sort of tie that in as a bit of a discussion about how the game has been sort of gearing up and what we think it's going to look like. Hello, welcome everyone. Dan, I'll ask you how you are. I already know you've not been too well recently, but we've dragged you here. You've just about got a voice. How are you?
I'm not doing too badly. I will try and self-edit to avoid everyone having to listen to me cough. Managed to, just pick up those winter things that got a little bit more aggressive with me. I've been fighting it for nearly 3 weeks now. And I gave in. I was a typical bloke. I was like, I'm not going doctors. So I did finally, and I've got my antibiotics and stuff. So it turns out I got bacterial tonsillitis, which is
fantastic. That's what you
But
want.
it's better than the other one because they can't give you antibiotics for that.
Yeah,
so,
true.
Silver linings and all that. So I will endeavour to try and keep my coughing and general spluttering and grossness to a minimum. Any more than usual, anyway.
You just had extra husky, Dan. It's all good. It's all good.
Yes. Some for the housewives. How about yourself, Steve?
I'm not been too bad. Touch wood. I've managed to avoid all the viruses so far this year. With 2 kids school age, young school age as well, when they're still like sneezing onto their sleeves and that kind of stuff. It's I've normally caught something by now, but they've I've caught my youngest licking the back door yesterday, just as you do. So I don't know how I've managed to survive it, but I've been all right. We've been busy. Jacob, my eldest, just had his 9th birthday this last weekend, so it's been crazy full on, but he's had a good birthday, did some good stuff. I'm actually going off to Warhammer World next weekend, for he chose Warhammer World as his day trip, and it just happened to coincide his next Sunday, which is the second day of the Throne of Skulls for Middle Earth.
That it is.
So so if you're watching this and you're up there that weekend, come and grab me if you're not mid-game. Damien's already said, make sure I go and say hi, and I will if he's, again, as I said, not mid-game. I'm sure I'll be up there for a couple of hours with Jacob. So I'll be knocking around Warhammer World and Bugman's and stuff soon. Yeah, come over and talk to me and watch my shy son hide behind me as people talk to me, probably. It's all good fun. He wanted one of the things on his birthday list was a Warhammer giant for his Orcs and Goblins army. I really wanted to buy him one and get it collected there, but it's gone web only now. So I had the joys of trying to buy something on that new website. I think we talked about it last show. I just thought, it doesn't look as good, but actually trying to use it, I'm really quite concerned about how badly it doesn't work. And you wouldn't let me, when you go into your account, I couldn't pre-save any of my details, card payment and stuff like that. So I've got hopefully it's a lot better by January, February, whenever we get our release for the old world. But a little bit concerned about that. I didn't pre-order my Imperialis from them. I got somewhere else. So it was somewhere I shop from a lot more often, and it was a lot smoother with my saved account. So hopefully once they've got past those bugs, that means the screen keeps refreshing and shooting you down to the bottom when you're mid-click and things. But I feel sorry for the customer service teams. It's probably getting a good hammering from people complaining at the moment, but that clearly wasn't ready, was it? Really wasn't ready. Anyway, let's move on from that. Let's talk about news. We don't want to cover an awful lot of news because some of the news is tied up with the old world kind of stuff. But there's a couple of other things from the World Championships reveal from GW that I think that took our fancy, so to speak. Dan, you really liked the Ashoran, is that how it's pronounced, from the Flesh Eater Courts?
Yeah, Ashoran, yes. So aside from the fact it's a wicked model, and it is a really lovely model, that's like a really big deal because he's one of the first vampires.
I don't know anything about the lore for him.
The original lore of sort of Khemri and stuff. There was Abarash was Blood Dragons. Ashoran became Strigoi.
Yeah.
and they're I can't remember the other two, Lamia and oh, it's going to do mad in now. But either way, the fact that they've effectively bought, that's almost Primark level
Yeah.
persona
Yeah. Yeah.
from all well past,
It's cool.
and they've given him a model. That's awesome.
That is awesome.
That's
I
really,
didn't
really
realize who it
cool.
was. I recognize the other names, but his doesn't stand out. So I've read the lore once for, the VC book, and I've read the Tomb Kings book recently, but it doesn't stick in very well unless it's something I'm super passionate about. But that's a lot more than I realized. The model is really cool as well. That's just the whole range is really, really nice.
Yeah, that whole range. AOS gets it all. I mean, apart from the fact the Lumineth are a bit. Some notable exceptions. Techless Tyrion, both very nice.
Yeah.
But mostly not great. But generally, AOS has got some phenomenal model lines. Keep saying it. Always keep saying it. But this is no exception. It's like they just keep nailing the brief every time.
Yeah. Yeah. So it seems to fit that kind of that freedom of not having to rank stuff up, and those kind of really expressive miniatures just really work for that game. I can see why it's gone strength to strength. Like it, although that I don't know if you might have caught this yet, Dan, or watching Jordan Sorcery's latest video was an interview with Alan Merritt, which is really interesting. Talked about,
but he's responsible for End Times, isn't he?
So, yeah, and there's a big irony about it because he prefers Warhammer Fantasy, but from a business point of view, he
I get the feeling there were an awful lot of people in that position.
Yeah, it's really interesting. As much as I didn't want fantasy to go, I think listening to him talk about it, you can understand why they made the business decision that they did. I know people don't like to think like that, but business is business at the end of the day. It's not sentimental, is it? And if one of your ranges is making significantly less than the other, it makes no sense to. I think the crux of the story was 40k month, good month, fantasy month, bad month, and why fantasy would still make money. They could make more money just by doing more and more 40k, which is what people complain about. But then if you really step back and think about that, if you can make twice as much money as a business, why would you keep doing the old thing? You had to find a way of sort of balancing it a little bit. But it looks like what we've got coming is a way that will work for it as a slightly less invested system. So the best of both worlds. And we had to go through all that pain probably to get back where we are now. But we'll cover that later. I think that's almost the last line of my notes that I made about the old world stuff later. We've also got, well, obviously the Necrolith Bone Dragon was the Tomb Kings announcement from that day. I think we're all a little bit surprised that there wasn't more, and that's not a complaint. That's we'd all made a massive assumption because the Tomb Kings have got that big reveal with the whole an announcement. This is the whole launch range. We all think, well, that's next week. It's gonna be the next launch range, and it wasn't. And now stepping back and thinking about it, it was just an assumption. They hadn't promised that, and there was a lot more from other systems announced in this reveal than there was in the previous one. So there's an amount of overall space needed. So, and we've got lots of time. We've still got couple of weeks left in November. We still got all of December, and God knows when it's going to be out. We might not be out till February, so could be technically later. We don't know. I got a feeling it will be out by Feb at the latest, but there's still plenty of weeks for them to do another big some kind of reveal. They do them over Christmas sometimes as well, don't they? They do even if it's from HQ rather than at an event, so to speak. So they will do that at some point. We'll just have to wait. But yeah, it just took everyone by surprise. But aside from that, I really like the model. It's pretty cool. Some people haven't, and there's been a lot of kind of it's too AOS-y kind of stuff, and that's fine as well. If you don't like it, you don't like it. But I think it's pretty cool. I really like the sort of howdah on the top and the different mount options. I quite like that, probably like that more than the actual dragon itself. But I'd like to see it in hand because the pictures, you know what? I think the pictures are great to show the angle, the shape of the model. I don't think it must be hard to get that golden angle.
I think a model that big, it's just really difficult to. It's evidently bigger than it looks.
The side shots of it, there's been quite a few people have obviously paused the video and cropped it and shared. And the size of it's going to be pretty big. So I think it's really cool. What shows the investment in the game. Some people like it, some people don't. Some people like the Necrosense and the War Sphinx when they come out. Some people don't. Now those are the best models in the world if you hear the community talking about it. Whereas I remember at the time when those things were released and people didn't like them, they thought they were too big and janky. It's the same. It's the same complaints over and over again. And it's legitimate if you don't like it, and it's legitimate if you do like it. Kind of move on and don't buy it. I very much
The
doubt
only
it's going
exception
to
will
be.
be
Yeah.
diving in. Someone goes, "I like it," and you dive in and go, "You're an idiot. You shouldn't like it." And let people
Yeah.
like stuff. Just
Yeah,
disagree honorably.
absolutely, absolutely. Dislike stuff with a proper critical comment rather than
If other people enjoy it,
just
let them enjoy it.
yeah.
That's one of the comments I saw. Like, I don't like it. No one else should like it either. I'm like, what a ray of sunshine you must be.
I don't very rarely. I do occasionally get drawn, but I don't very rarely read the comments in a certain unnamed big Warhammer old world group that's a bit like the Wild West. I've had some. I put a quick short out, sort of say we were talking about them today, and I've had some comments on there, and they were all excellent generally because the people who watch this channel are most excellent people who know that I don't kind of get into angry sort of stuff, and they probably don't. You attract like, don't you? So you get people with sensible comments, and a couple of people that were saying Link wasn't quite like it, wasn't quite the thing they wanted, and they were had a couple of really nice sort of mini chats with people in the comments. And explain why they didn't, and it's just proper sensible adult conversation about a miniature rather than whining and crying, and their sort of final thing was, it doesn't matter, I still like all the old stuff, I'll just play with the old. They preferred pre sort of 7th ed styling for the older stuff. Cool, no problem with that at all. Moving on quickly then, so we have Blanche, The Rise of Grimdark, which was a book that was announced. It popped up on Thomas Pirinen's Facebook page. I think he's written a chapter in it. There's a book about John Blanche essentially, and I think it's published by Ralph Arthur, which is quite amusing. It made me chuckle. The architect of Games Workshop's Grimdark, and a biography about him published by Ralph Arthur, the maker of fantasy miniatures, mainly from Dungeons and Dragons and things back in the era, weren't they? So remember Ralph Arthur, Dan? Or were you? In my era. No, that's why you didn't immediately clock it when I said it. Some of the people of my age group,
you've mentioned it
older
before, and my brain's just very slowly trying to work out what it was.
Yeah, Ralph Arthur and I don't know what they do now, but we're a miniatures company that made a lot of licensed stuff for TSR and things.
That's it.
So yeah, when I was buying GW stuff from my hobby shop as a kid, there was full of Ralph Arthur stuff as well, and as long as a load of other things. Tempted to pick that up. It is hardback at the moment with a signed card, and it's $64.99. If I remember, I'll pop a link in the description. I've just, with Christmas coming up, and already pre-ordered Imperialis and stuff. I'm probably spent my hobby budget, if I'm honest. I might have to wait for that to come out in paperback, but we will see. Yeah. And then today we've had some more news for Middle-earth strategy battle game. Finally, there has been an announcement, and all the people in the Facebook groups can stop complaining. It's an interesting one why they couldn't have squeezed this into the World Championships reveal. I'm sure there's a good reason for it, but considering it's like 3 days afterwards, and there was a lot of people complaining, it's another reveal without the Middle-earth logo on there. If they'd squeezed this in, it would have probably been fine. But these are translucent.
All that said, though, that's what we get, because that's what we got last time.
Oh, well, I'm sure that's. I've not even looked at the comments on in the British Hobbit League about this, so I imagine that's what it's full of. But these are clear resin essentially. Army of the Dead, and the King of the Dead, and the Heralds stuff as well. I think, isn't it?
Not the Riders, interestingly.
Not the Riders, which is.
But they're near their metal, aren't they?
Not many people use them anyway. Yeah. So all the things that were plastic, so could be told in plastic, are coming out in a clear resin. And on the article they've shown, I'll pop up, the picture will be on the screen now, but they've said they've dry brushed the top of them to get that effect. So you got this sort of white dry brushed effect that makes it look like they're kind of coming forming ethereally. They just look great. And if you're not a painter and you want to play a Middle-earth strategy battle game, you just got to base them and you're done. They probably will go yellow, by the way, though. It probably will go yellow because all the other things I had all the ring wraiths, and they turn a bit yellow after a while. A bit like
my ring bearers are still okay, but
the worst ones are the ones that have actually been kept dark, the ones that are not used. My Elendil, is it? I can't remember who it is. He's very yellow.
Isildur.
Isildur, yeah, what is that? Isildur. I was going to sell him because I don't think I'll never use him. I picked him out and I was like, it's too yellow. Can't even put that on eBay. He looks like he looks like a light. But anyway, it's really good to see those. And then the last thing, briefly touch off news wise, is obviously Legions Imperialis went up on pre-order, and sold out really quick, didn't it? Surprisingly quick, actually. I didn't think you see it with the some of the limited run
Kill teams
games.
and stuff.
Yeah, kill teams and your things like that. I didn't quite expect it to go out quite as quickly. I was busy. It was Jacob's birthday, so I was doing bits. I didn't get online till about 11:30 and saw it sold out. Just the box. You can buy the rule book separately, and nearly all of the other miniatures are available separately. I think is only the
cards
Arvis Lighters that, and the cards. Yeah, the stat cards. But cards, I wouldn't be surprised if they went within the hour. They GW and cards. I've got a history, haven't they? No matter what system it is, and it's because they don't want to be left with stock, so they probably are quite safe with their ordering of those things. I can let them off a little bit I can let them off a little bit, but I mean, I can understand and predict. I thought that the starter might last the weekend at least, and it didn't.
No.
So I did 2 separate orders actually. From when I went to Element, and I ordered just a box of the Legionaries on their own. So I can do my planned videos, which is a painting tutorial for each Legion. That's what I'm planning content wise. I plan on kind of slowly building up my own army and doing little bits of content here and there for Legions Imperialis, but it won't take up as much sort of space on the channel because Old World's just, I love both of these games, but Old World's so much more, and them being so close together now because of the delay, it just means my heart can't quite go into Imperialis as much as I would at another point. If it came out in the summer, when it were end of the summer, when it looked like it was originally due, I'd have probably spent the last 2 or 3 months smashing content and stuff on it. But timing wise, it just, it's just a little bit too tight for me. But so I've ordered a box separately, and then I also ordered a starter from Element as well as a separate order, half expecting that if they do have an issue like's happened in the past where they're good Element, they don't kind of oversell recklessly. They will only sell their allocation, but it's whether or they get all their allocation, and that's what I'm concerned about. So the Legionaries will turn up because you can still buy them in places now. People start stock of that. You can still buy a GW, so that's not an issue. So Legionaries will turn up. That the tutorial videos will happen, whether I get my own starter or not. I hope so. I've got an order. I paid for it. If not, I'll get a refund and have to wait for it to come back in stock in the new year. Or I might just pick up the rulebook, if I'm honest with you, because come new year, I'll be all focused on the Old World. So I'll pick up the rulebook and I'll refocus on the game at some point when I have a little gap in stuff next year. So I will be covering it, not quite as in detail as some other things, but there will be some videos and things going on. That's the news.
Last week or so, I got a little bit of FOMO on that. Actually, I was like, oh, I just had to say no. Let it go.
I really like the look of it, but I'm trying not to kind of look at the massive range and go big and do an army. The idea with the starter set is almost not build armies too much. Pick a Legion and paint my starter set, not worry about what kind of list it builds too much. And then when I'm ready to actually really start getting some games in, then I'll probably play Incom. I'll play with Tom, probably locally. I know we'll get Tom on maybe next show actually, because it'll be out by then. Probably we'll get Tom on, who's my ex-partner in crime for podcasting for a Horus Heresy. We'll have to bleep. It'll be one long bleep because he swears like a trooper. He's got his own podcast called Advancing Fire. Go and check it out. If you do, again, beware. It's quite potty mouthed and blokish, down the pubish. Actually, if that's not your thing, then yeah, beware. It's but they know what they're talking about, and they've all been playing Adeptus Titanicus since it's launched, and are kind of small scale Games Workshop experts at the moment, as it would be, so they know what they're talking about in between all the fun stuff. But we'll get Tom on to talk us through his thoughts on the game, because he's more knowledgeable than me and you. But as I said, I'll probably just paint it as a starter, enjoy it, and then at some point when I get the bug and I play a couple of games, I'll then add what I actually need. Because at the moment, I haven't got the energy to think about what kind of list I want to build. Well, I can pick a color, and I'm going to pick a color after I've done all those tutorials. I'll see which one I enjoy painting most and what it looks like best, rather than any kind of rules, which is the way I always do, and then we'll crack from there. But anyway, that's the news. Dan, what have you been up to since we last recorded?
Well, I've been sick, which, to be fair, has massively dented my hobby, general doing
I can
anything.
understand, yeah.
Watched a lot of Mad Men,
Hmm.
which is great. I was well enough to make it to a wedding. Alex Riddick's, who's part of Advancing Fire,
Yep.
saw Tom, which was fun. I did paint, on the screen somewhere, the large white from the Underworlds box set, one of my unit
Yeah, yeah.
fillers.
Very
Um,
nice. It is too.
it came out all right. It was nice to actually, I just had a stint of a couple of days where I felt really good, so I just popped it away and did it. I do arrive today. Probably can't tell very much from it. Uh, a certain flute
Oh,
wielding zombie
oh, very
turned up
nice.
today from Sean.
Very, very
So
nice.
had planned on building him before we recorded, but I napped. I'll be straight up.
Good on you.
And I've also assembled and undercoated one of the vampire ladies as well.
Oh, very nice. It's cool.
Another little unit for everything. So yeah, there's not been a huge amount I've done, if I'm honest with you. I picked up End of the Death Part 2, the
Hmm.
Siege of Terror, Norris Heresy. Battered that out in about 2 days.
Good.
Better than the first part.
Okay.
Dad having it left the thesaurus alone a bit, which was good.
I still,
Um,
I still think I'm going to hold out because it's only those I've got left, and I just want to wait till part 3 to comes out and then just smash all 3 back to back. So
they're right books. I didn't want any spoilers, so I just hammered it out.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm
yeah,
trying to
yeah,
think.
yeah.
I've not really done an awful lot else. Yeah, kind of dull, really. Apologies, everyone.
It's not dull. It's not dull. What have I been up to? Painting Napoleon. Warlord Games Soldier of Fortune model they sent me. I've got next month's as well. Can't tell you what it is yet though, but they haven't announced it. I've got next sitting up there in a box to paint, which will be fun. And it is going to be a fun one. But it was a really unique figure. And it was just a nice little project. And I said, would you like to paint one? And I was given quite a short deadline on it, nicely, but it was kind of, if you can do it in about a week. And all I could do was really spend, I think it was 8 hours painting and editing and everything in total. I think the actual painting time was 5 or 6 hours. So I couldn't quite do all I wanted, but luckily a lot of it was white, and with contrast whites and stuff now, well, it can be quite quick to paint, especially if you have an airbrush, and there's lots of ways of doing it. And then red as well, and I find red quite easy to paint. So it helped an awful lot. And then it was really nice miniatures. They're very crisp and clean, and they're clear. I think pretty confident they're 3D designs, and obviously cast in metal, but just a really nice set. And it's just unique, having a 2-piece sort of mini vignette with an artist painting Napoleon is just a really, really cool thing to do. And they have put a competition on at the moment. So if you have got the miniature, because you spent, I can't remember what you have to spend over, it might be £100 and you get it free, and you can buy the model separately. But if you get it painted, I think the deadline is 4th or 5th of December or something. You'll find out on their website. But that was really good fun. Did that, and that's the only painting I've actually finished. The only thing non-work wise, but the only thing I've actually fully finished. And the plan was to get a Tomb King video out this last weekend. It probably won't be out this weekend either. I'm working through what I've got of my Tomb Kings, so I really want to push on now, so that when we get to January, February, whenever it is, I've got the core of what I already own painted. It'll help me decide what I need to buy, because we don't know what's going to be there yet. And I worked out that I've got 30 skellies with pound weapons, 30 with spears. I've got, looking over the table over there, 12 horse with spears, and 12 with bows, which hoping will go in 2 small units. I'm guessing that would have been useful, having little sort of speedy units to redirect and stuff. 3 chariots, and I might need more there, but I think 18 bows, or 16 or 18 bows as well. So I've got a really big core there, and the characters I've already painted. So I'm looking at that and thinking, well, if there's a 2-player starter set, I might not need much of the Tomb King stuff. If it's the rumored separate army boxes, which seems to be the more prevailing rumor now, depending on who you believe, but whether it's Hastings on there, if it's, I'm just looking at it thinking I might not need the Tomb King starter. It'd be a pain if it's the only way to get a special character, which I imagine it will be, because they're going to follow that business model that they do for Middle Earth and other things. But it might well just be easier for me to pay an eBay over the inflated price for something in the short term if I want to paint it up, unless GW want to send me up. I don't think they will, but we will see how it goes. So I think Tomb Kings I'm sorted. Brett's, I've started sorting things as well. I've got 32 bows there. I may not need any more. In old days you wouldn't need more, so if more of those come to start, I'll be moving them on. I've only got 18 men-at-arms, so I probably will need a few more. So, and then we'll see. And I'm definitely going to need more knights. So Brett's will probably be a safer bet. This is making assumptions that you're going to get core and a character. If you don't get that stuff, who knows? But making the assumptions based on the rumors of getting some knights and some foot troops and stuff, and I will might get just the Brett one if they don't sell out. And this is the link to the Legions thing. I'm a little bit nervous now. I've already got FOMO because of that going out of stock within any hour. I don't really want that stress, especially with that website that doesn't work properly. But there's time. There is time. And if I don't get it, as long as I can get a rule book, I'll be okay. Because the rest of it can be taken. Having already started, though, I keep looking because the army's there. I'm a bit thick like that. If I know something's there, I have to keep turning it. If I've already got a good start, so I'm in a good position. I know some people won't be, and they haven't got models, and it will be a problem for them if they can't get hold of it. So we will see. And what else have I done? Oh, the other bit of shopping's arrived. You can see them over there properly. We've got the Pontifex kind of Cities of Sigmar palanquin thing, and some more of the Cities of Sigmar sort of guard Guild steel helms, apparently. I've got a few of those left over on a sprue from when I did my Mordheim warband as well, and I'm going to try and kit bash grey or reliquary from them. That'd be a fun thing to do. I've got plenty of spare heads left over from men-at-arms kits, so that will be an upcoming video. So those arrived. I'm just having time to do them. And then other than that, the channel hit 10k subscribers. People would have seen that because I put a little video out, which is really nice. So thank you everyone who has been helping me along the way with that. And then with that, I decided I'd given myself a goal of hitting 10k before I set up a Discord, and then more importantly, the Patreon. Wanted to wait for quite a while. I probably should have started it ages ago. People tend to start them straight away with channels now if they're planning on growing them. But I really genuinely didn't have any plans when I started this channel other than somewhere to put some videos up about epic battles, American Civil War, and it's grown and grown and grown into kind of to encompass all of my hobby stuff. If I did know I was going to grow it to this much, I would have done things a little bit differently early on. I made my earlier videos a little bit more polished and a little bit more edited. But so the Discord has got 2 levels. There is a free level on there, so you don't have to join the Patreon to come and join in. And I chat to people a lot in the comments, and quite often someone will say, I'm working on this, and I want to say, great, show me a picture. But you can't in YouTube comments, you can't post a picture. So there are 3 channels on the Discord. One is like a general one for any kind of miniature related chat. One is for the hobby hour, so people can get on there and ask us questions specifically related to this show, and interact with us, ask us questions, post pictures, that kind of thing. And then there's one which is a kind of a general painting kind of thing, so post pictures of what you want. So it's just 3 channels for that. And then there are a load more channels that are for patrons only. And then my Patreon has got 5 tiers. The bottom 2 levels are very much kind of thank yous, and you get access to the Patreon. And you know, and the second one you get a little bit more your name and the credits kind of stuff. And then the top 3 layers are very much based around coaching and tuition. One is kind of online private chat with me, so you can post pictures at any time really, and that kind of thing. So just go, I'm not going to read those out to you. Go and check them out if you are interested. So I'm there. Some of them you're paying for some kind of tuition and coaching, personal stuff, and a couple of them you're just support, but all of them you're supporting the channel, and all of them you get access to the full Discord, etc., etc. And the top couple of levels you get some extra perks like some dice and things as well. So go and check them out. If you're not interested in the Patreon, it is absolutely fine. The channel is going to continue to do what it does anyway. I'm not going to start putting loads of stuff behind a paywall. It's more to sort of help me grow the channel a bit more, maybe get the odd bit of equipment and cover my time. Because as I said in my announcement video, it takes me 8 hours to do a 20-minute painting video, and I love doing it, and I'm going to keep doing it. It's not a complaint, but 8 hours is, if I want to start doing more videos or make them better quality, means I have to do them in the daytime, not just always in the evenings. And if that means I'm doing it instead of work hours, then I need to start kind of balancing, looking at finding ways of funding the channel towards taking over some of my commission painting stuff. So if there's a slow balancing change, then great. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But that's that. Anyway, let's take a break and we'll come back and we'll delve into the old world. And welcome back. So I messaged Dan over the weekend, and before we knew that there wasn't going to be a huge Tomb King reveal, which we assumed, and I thought, wouldn't it be great? We'll do a big special, and we'll talk about the full range of Tomb Kings, and we'll also talk a little bit about how the game is shaping up. And we debated about whether to record this on Sunday night or to wait for the latest almanac to come out on Monday. And then, of course, when we found out that was the one Tomb King model, it was definitely important for us to wait. But I still wanted to go ahead and do it. I think it's now we've got the 4 main phases covered through articles. I think we're in a good place now to kind of get a good idea about what the game is looking like and talk about it a little bit. We're not the first people to do this, I know, but I want to, something I'm really, really interested in. And I know that a lot of you who have contacted me recently have been watching the show, and all know a lot of you are interested in this as well. So maybe interested in what we think of it. So what we'll do is I'll go through, I'm not going to read the articles fully. Go and check those yourself. If you go to the Warhammer Community webpage and go to the Old World part, you'll see that the latest, all the articles are there in chronological order of their release. You can go right back to the one 4 years ago when it was about the square bases and all the little hints and stuff. But the last few, aside from the reveal, you can see basically they've called it the almanac, and it's each article covers a different section of the rules. And it's almost like they're teaching you the rules. It's like someone's giving you a bit of an intro game, a bit of an overview of the rules. And I think it's excellent. It's really, really nice way of presenting you some rules. And I'll talk a little bit at the end about why I think they're doing that. And I think it's a good thing, but it's really, really interesting. So the first almanac, they introduced the turn sequence. And that's when we found out, and there had been rumors before, but that's when we found out that the magic phase had been removed. Now, I'm going to make some assumptions here that you've played Warhammer Fantasy or are aware of it. Because we haven't got time to do a 20-minute kind of, this is what Warhammer Fantasy was like thing. So I'm going to make some assumptions. But the turn sequence is now the strategy phase, the movement phase, the shooting phase, and the combat phase. The magic phase being removed, but my assumption is the magic is still there in its entirety, really, and it's just sprinkled throughout those phases. So movement spells are in the movement phase. Shooting spells will be like a ranged attack, like a fireball or something like that, is in the shooting phase, and it's very, very logical. And I really like that. It's really interesting. So let's go through each of those phases as they've been announced as per the articles. As the time we're recording this is Monday the 20th. The latest article was out today, and that was about the combat phase. But we'll go through phase by phase at a bit of an overview. There's more detail in the articles. I'm not going to read the articles to you, but enough for Dan and I to have a little bit of a chat, and we can sort of discuss the overall picture. And then I'd love in the comments for you to kind of go to town, really, really tell me what you think. Join the Discord, get in there and talk about it on there as well, because it'd be really good to get an overall view of what different people's thoughts are on it, rather than me I'm not preaching to people. I'm generally really positive about gaming. And so sometimes people come up with things and go, actually, yeah, that's a good point. Maybe that's not as good as I thought it. So bring me down, people, but not too much. So the strategy phase starts with special actions and tests. So that's like stupidity, things like that, right at the beginning. Then we move on to command, which is where characters use their special rules. So the example they give is of an enchanted item. So certainly enchanted ones. So we've got the falcon horn of Fremund, and I'll be putting the images on the screen as they will appear in the article. So that's something that a magical weapon that you would have used at a certain point, or a magical item that does a certain thing. So you'd use that at that point. And then you move on to stage 3 of it, which is conjuration. That's for casting enchantments and hexes. So that's when it brings the magic into that initial part. And there's another example there. Dujaf's incantation of cursed blades. You can see there. Again, go and look at the article. I'm not going to read all the text on those, but go and look at the article and read them and have a little look. I mean, you'll find, if you know fantasy, they feel very familiar. And then the 4th part is rallying fleeing troops. And that's your first phase there. And nothing there feels unfamiliar, Dan. I'd say it feels like stuff you'd find in all editions of, or most editions of fantasy, just maybe slightly in different, slightly different places. And it feels to me like there's been a lot of thoughts about how those elements are all good, but maybe they weren't always in a place that was logical, or in a place that allowed the game to flow quickly. And it feels like that they've put this in a kind of tidy thing. Now, until we play it, I won't know, but feels quite logical. When I saw that first announcement, I thought the phases look good, and that first strategy phase seems to make sense. I don't know. I mean, it's quite a bland one, that first one. But if you got any thoughts aside from my ramblings, Dan?
No, definitely makes sense to put things there. I think at it from a purely selfish perspective, undead, putting things like raising creatures then is a good time to do it, because before you start moving, all that kind of stuff. Obviously dealing with there's always been mechanics in there for movements you have to make, and in movement phases and stuff like that, but using that phase to determine what those are is really good, because when you hit the movement phase up front, it bogs that down less.
That's right. It seems logical, seems straightforward, and it was pretty good first article. And the rest of that first article also covered the movement phase as well, because obviously the strategy phase, while that's part 1 of the turn sequence, there's not really a lot going on there in terms of detail. So we have the movement phase, and again that's split into 4 sub phases. So the movement phase article, the section of the article, is a little bit more detailed. So first of all, they actually give you some information on formations and things to give you some context to it, rather than just going straight into movement. And there's a diagram on the screen now. And it shows you close and open order, which is something that we've not come up against before. And I've heard lots of people talking about Warhammer Ancients and how that may have worked. And if you watch the Square-based podcast, if you watch it rather than listen to it, you can listen to it. So it's Rob from Honest Wargamer and Val Heffelfinger do this Warhammer Old World podcast. It's great. I love it. They started it on the Honest Wargamer stream channel, and then in his feed on podcasts. I'll try and remember to pop a link in the video description for it now, but if you go and search Square Bast, it'll come up. They've now kind of given it its own channel, its own feed just for this. But he went into quite a long, detailed discussion around how things may have been pulled from Warhammer Ancients 2nd edition. I've got a copy of it now. I've downloaded a copy of it and had a little flick through, but I'm not going into great detail yet. So I'm not going to kind of say, yes, that is the case, or that isn't the case. But there are many of the phrases and things that we see in this game seem to be from there. And that was a game that had an awful lot of focus on movement and positioning, which I think is really encouraging. So we have close and open order. We have skirmish, and then it shows the lance formation as well. So that was confirmation that from the pictures that we know, that is that the Bretts are moving back to that. We don't know whether other factions or armies will be able to use that as well. Be interesting to see whether that's a Brett only thing. This looks like an image from the book. I don't know what you think, Dan. It looks like something they've not just made up for the article, but we'll come to something at the end, and I kind of hope it is. But it looks like something that could be from the book, and if it is, having the lance there by those other 2 things is quite interesting, because if it's just for Bretts, why would that be kind of front and center in the core rulebook? But interesting. And then they show you combat order and marching column, and basically combat order is where your width is wider than your ranks deep. Marching column is when you're deeper than than wide. And if you're in marching column, you can move 3 times. You can still march as well, but if you're in a marching column, we move 3 times. So really screams to me this game's going to be around setting up your movement, your positioning, getting your charges right, and then once it happens, it's a much more tactical. And we've already seen now that the spells are throughout the game, so I'm already building a picture of buffs to units, to movement and things happening in the right stages, really setting up those combats, which is maybe more subtle but more layered tactical thing rather than Bosch 6 dice skills, as it would be. Purple sun, bang, gone, unit gone, you've won the game. I'm hoping that the spells are a little bit less like that, and the look of the rules so far would suggest that there's a lot of focus on the subtlety of movement and the importance of movement and things and positioning and things. So the movement is broken down into those 4 subphases again. We've got declare charges. We've learned that pre-measuring is allowed, and then you can hold, stand, shoot, flee, and countercharge as reaction. So countercharge is again something new. Countercharge is in Ancients. I don't know if they'll copy the rule over, but again, have a look online. It might be worth sort of having a look at those things, and we might give you an idea of what we've got to expect. Second subphase is charge moves, and charging has changed again. So 6th edition down, you remember probably it was fixed charge, which is you double your movement, I believe it was. 8 by 8th ed, it's completely random because you were pre-measuring. So it's just rolling dice. This is rolling 2d6, but you're picking your highest and you're adding it to your movement. There's kind of a halfway house there, because if you have pre-measuring, you've got to have some kind of random charge. And I quite like this. I think they use this in 9th age or WAP or both. So what's come after the 8th. I've never played those games, and I don't want to be reading those rules now and confusing my brain and mixing too many more additions into my head. As Dan will know, having played the odd game with me, that I don't remember rules very well. And the fact the only game I really remember very well is some kind of amalgamation of Warhammer. I probably couldn't pick up a game and play 7th ed Heresy now, Dan, but when I played 6th ed with Jacob this summer, it felt like I was back home again. It's just the main rule, first rules I ever learned properly, and they seem to be the only ones that are properly ingrained into my head. Maybe it's because they're the only rules I learned properly before I started drinking. I don't know. Maybe that's got something rotted my brain. Anyway, digress. 2d6, pick the highest, add your movement to it, and then Swiss stride is a special rule using the example, and we know that Brett's have it from the article, and you're basically adding an extra d6 to that, so that gives cavalry some extra movement. Hopefully not 1, which it will be when I roll it. Then number 3 is compulsory moves. That's your fanatics and trolls, stupidity, that kind of stuff. And then your remaining moves, which is basically your regular movement. And then before the article ends, we show that wheeling is back. So instead of just turning on a circle, so I'm moving that off camera there. So in 8th edition, you could just kind of spin on a center axis and move.
Do you want to?
Whereas now we're going to be you measure, you kind of stick your corner in and you measure, you move that much, and that distance that you've traveled here is how far you move. So if you're moving 4 inches, you might go move 2, then move another 2 forward or something. Brilliant prop. So wheeling is back. It has its issues. People have brought up the issues, is that it slows the game down. Can make charging that a little bit harder and a little bit finicky. I kind of like it because it feels nice when you're playing it on the game, but it's definitely not speed thing. I'm surprised, really. I thought that's the kind of thing they'd modernize rather than bring it back. But again, we'll come back to why I think that is at the end. And that's the end of that phase. And then we move on to the shooting phase, which was last week's almanac. So Dan, do you have anything to add about the movement stuff before we go into the shooting phase?
No, I think it's pretty well covered. Interested to see how those interactions between skirmishers and other bits and pieces, accidental movement, that kind of stuff. But
yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah, there's a lot more to know there, and everyone's trying to guess, and I enjoy the guess. I really enjoy the conversation, but we also need to step back. And I'm saying this while going on this massive long diatribe about this game. I'm saying this knowing full well that we are seeing snippets of information, not the actual rules, and we won't get a full picture until we've got the books in our hands. So we'll just have to accept that. But it's fun to chat about a little bit and hypothesize. So the shooting phase, again, the 4 sections. So we've got declare targets first, and you can't have marched, you can't have charged, you can't be fleeing, standard kind of stuff from previous editions. You can only fire once, which is standard as well, unless there's a special rule that overrides that. Only front rank can fire, and that's 6th ed, I think, was like that. I think by 8th, 2nd rank can fire, unless they have the volley fire special rule. So that brings in the special rules.
If they're on a hill.
Or if they're on a hill, that's right. So if you position yourself on a hill, which is good. What you don't always want is just the 2 lines of hills and your dwarves and your elves and everyone just on hills, and you go around your mate's house and he's 50, all the hills on one side, and he's hoping that he rolls that side of the table. But it makes sense. I quite like the idea of volley fire as well. And I've heard people say different things and say, well, that's probably bows then, making fire straight back. But I thought it could also be volleys with shooting. I don't know whether I like this or not. I don't dislike this rule. I think things probably should be able to fire in 2 ranks. Historically, they could, but they might just be trying to take the power level away from shooting a little bit. Every period of history has examples of a kneeling front rank and a standing rank behind shooting. And the bows, they would very often, the behind ranks would fire up and over. So I'm hoping that a lot of that will be covered by unit special rules. It'll give people little extras and and that's a great way of building the flavor in. What you really want is a really stripped back, simple game, as simple as you can for your core rules and your core components. Then you add your flavor for the special rules, as long as you keep that balance later on. And then second stage is roll to hit, and that is very, very familiar. So your roll to hit ballistic is ballistic skill D6 roll, and that's the same as all the other editions. That has not changed at all. If you now the difference to it is if you have a ballistic skill of 6 or higher, you get to re-roll. But you hardly anyone's got a ballistic. Well, previously hardly anyone have a ballistic skill of 6 or higher, so it's not really going to be a thing. It's going to be the old special character here or there, probably. So again, the reroll looks an interesting way of doing it. It's definitely adding crunchiness and complexity rather than streamlining it. And again, I think they've got reasons for doing that, to looking at the market that they're aiming at. And it's an interesting way of giving bonuses to people that should be able to shoot better, which they didn't really handle so well before. So it's a good way of solving a problem. Third subsection is roll to wound, and it's the same as it was before. You have negative modifiers. You've got your cover and all those other things as well. Your armor and all the things you can imagine. I'm not going to list them all, and they haven't put much on there as well. And then the wound chart is very familiar as well if you've played fantasy before. The addition, though, or the change, I had a look at this versus 8th and 6th. You've got some capped wounds there, so things before would still wound even on the highest toughnesses. You still could wound them on a 6. It's removed that now, so a strength 1 can't wound anything over a toughness 6. So that will means it will help with you. I don't know, like loads and loads of the goblins running up and taking out a massive war engine that's made of metal that they could never physically hurt. They shouldn't be able to do anything to it. So I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Got a weapon stats example. So we got longbow and a screaming skull catapult there. The longbow looks exactly the same.
I couldn't determine anything different from
in terms of its 30-inch range and its strength. The special rules are different. New edition, you'd expect that. It's got volley fire, which is interesting. So that says that my Brett, if they've got longbows, they might just carry short bows. That'll be interesting. Hopefully the Bretts can do some kind of volley fire, and then armor bane 1, whatever I'm saying. One thing you will notice is AP is now in the weapon stat rather than strength based, and this is quite a big change, because before it was based on the relative strength, and it would work for hand-to-hand combat as well, close combat as well. And then you'd have to add a modifier based on a small table. People would know off the top of their head. Now, kind of building it into the weapon stat means they've got more design space, I suppose. Seems to make a lot more sense. So you're thinking about the weapon's ability to wound rather than building it into a core mechanic. So I quite like that. The Screamer's got catapult is there as well, and that's again very, very similar. Aside from the special rules, we don't know what they are, so there's no point in trying to guess. But I think the strength is different under the hole, which in the brackets one, which is I'm assuming is what it is. But other than that,
double strength, isn't it? Strength 6.
Yeah. So other than that, it's incredibly similar.
It could actually be strength 9. I think he's taken to the
yes,
template,
I think so. It's not as strong now. 4 is remove casualties, which you're just removing we don't need to talk about that in any great detail. And then they give some examples as well. So we talked about the magic being spread throughout the phases. So magic missiles and magical vortexes also take place in the shooting phase, and it gives a couple of examples. So we've got fireball there. So we've got magic missile casting value 8+. And now it's not my idea, this, but it seems to make sense. Val was talking about it on the Square-based podcast, and he just guessed that need an 8 to cast. So rather than having power dice or something like that, maybe we're looking at rolling 2d6 and adding your wizard's power level to it. So if they've still got power levels that they had before, imagine 2d6 plusing level 2 for bottom level, plusing 4. It would be an elegant way to do it, wouldn't it? I think it would work. 2d6, you roll it.
Makes sense.
So it could be a way of doing it. It seems fairly balanced, and it sounds like a simple and elegant way to do it. And maybe they can only cast 1 spell per turn or something like that, or who knows? But quite like it. Quite like the look of it. Range 24. Everything seems sort of very similar to before. And you've got Vortex of Chaos there as well. Again, I'll read through all the details. Have a look yourself on the articles if you're still interested. And then, sorry, Dan, before we move on to the next bit, any comments on the shooting phase?
No. I find the moving things to the weapon profile interesting. Because the fact that some weapons had an interaction as well as a strength, like a handgun being a good example. So strength 4, so it's -1, and then an additional -1 because it was armor piercing.
Yeah.
Black powder.
It just got really confusing. Yeah. And it's such a simple change. If it's the way we assume, it's such a simple change, but it's just, what's its AP? Look at its weapon strength. I just like it. It's good. So combat phase. So today's almanac, which I messaged Dan at about 4:30 and said there's no article yet, and we've held out recording and we're not doing it. But it did drop just a few minutes later on. So combat phase. So again, the 4 sub phases. Number 1 was choose and fight, and the first thing is that only the front rank fights, and it's referred to as the fighting rank, which is quite interesting. That's 6th ed, I believe. Definitely not 8th ed. So there's a change there, and I'll read this because so certain units have the ability to fight in deeper ranks or offer supplementary attacks. There are plenty of wrinkles to this. Some models may make supporting attacks from a deeper rank. Multiple units can be engaged in the same combat, and any model that is able to fight without being in base contact may only make 1 attack this turn. So I'll pause there for a second. They'd mentioned in a previous article that anyone in the front rank of a unit can attack, whether they're in base-to-base contact or not, and that's brand new. That's not been covered. That seems bizarre in some ways. It would only be the ones in base-to-base contact that would be able to attack. So that's why that's mentioned that way there. You roll as many dice as your engaged models have attacks, and with the higher initiative models striking first, a charging unit has the opportunity to overwhelm its enemies before they have the wit to swing back. To me, that says if you take off the front rank, you won't get to fight back. As per 6th edition, because it's changed a little bit over different editions. By 8th edition, you still got all your attacks regardless, and then you took your model, you take your models off as casualties, but you still got to attack before the end of the phase. That sounds like it may go back to the 6th edition style, as if you go in there and you can wipe the first rank off. I don't know how I feel. That was one of those parts of the game where you feel like, oh, I haven't had a chance to do anything, which is never a good thing in gaming. When you feel like you don't have chance to both play, when it's kind of take your toys off. But we will see. Could be wrong. Someone in one of the groups commented and thought that the next section that says you take the miniatures from the back meant that he assumed it meant step up, but I just think it means you're taking your miniatures from the back. And step up in 8th was a rule that says that even with the casualties gone, you'd still get to attack. I think that's what the rule was called anyway. Right, and where were they? So next you roll to wound and make armor saves as normal. Casualties are removed from back ranks, as I've already mentioned. So I think it's quite interesting. there about
Mm.
the wide ranks and everyone else to attack. I've got a feeling, this is a guess, that so we get down to the next section. So we got the to hit chart there, and that's changed slightly. The to hit chart.
Yeah, no 6 to
It's
hit.
no 6s to hit, and there was also 3 ups to wound in the other side of the other end of the chart. So that's changed it, so it's easier basically to hit, so more damage being done. So that's why I think got a real feeling that its positioning stage is going to be really important, and that these combats are going to, a lot's going to happen with those combats or the direct follow-up. And then you go to your combat results score, which is very much the same as we've always done with fantasy in one flavor or another. And this is the same as 6th edition, I think, almost identical to 6th edition. I think it's very similar to 8th as well. So each wound you cause, you get a point for, and then rank bonus. Now here, that might just be the table, but it just says 1 point per rank. It's not capped. In 6th edition, it was capped to a maximum of 3. It said it in the table. It said it in the quick reference sheet, not in the whole other original table. So it'll be really interesting. We've got no flavor text around this. We haven't got the explanation, which will go by it, but may well say you're maxed out at 3. But in this image here, it doesn't say that. And I wonder whether it's unlimited. And that's the trade-off against having an unlimited number of people in your front rank. So they can say, yeah, you can have 20 models in your front rank if you want to get 20 attacks in a combat. Not only is it going to take up 2 foot of your table and be unwieldy and you not be able to maneuver properly, you're also, if you fluff half of those and you come up against a unit of goblins, they're only 5 wide, but they're 10 ranks deep, they're starting with a standing res of 10. So that'll be that balance between what do I want my res to be, how many attacks do I want to put. So it may well be those units. This is me guessing here. I'm not. There's probably going to be smarter people when I go back online later on after talking about this who have worked this out already. I was never a super rulesy person, but I wonder if that's what they're doing. And it may well be that the units that are with good weapon skill and good ability to kill will want to have wider ranks, because I want to go in there more confident of getting their damage and getting their wounds and taking off that front rank so people can't fight back and winning those combats, and hopefully scoring enough points. But some of the tar pity type units may well do that. My fear is, and the reason I might be wrong, is it too easy to just do a certain amount, too many ranks back and just go, well, I've got a standing res of you'll never win a combat. Because right now it would feel like the ranks is a stronger thing than that.
Well, in old editions, if you're hitting the rear or the flanks, it negate your rank bonus. So
it would. So that's the other thing as well. So it might be a case of, yeah, you can. So you might be go wide and then go with a small unit in the side, something fast. So it's all about your positioning. And then that unit of 50 tar pit goblins, which was a problem in 8th, wasn't it? These massive steadfast units not going anywhere. Maybe that's what it is. But we will find out. I'm looking forward to finding out whether my guess is right. I'm going to be a little bit subtle there, but if you're not smart and you just go up against a big block of gobos, it might not go anywhere. So as you calculate your result anyway, that's your stage 2, and then stage 3 is your break test. Now this is different. This is new, and there was some text in the article around that they've taken some things from previous editions, but they also said we've taken some things from other. I don't know what exact wording was, but basically adjacent products from Games Workshop. So I'm thinking they're hinting at Ancients, but I don't think this is the rule from Ancients. But I've never played it. I've just skimmed the odd little bit. So if you played Ancients, Padge, I know you did. Let me know if was this part of an Ancients rule, or was it from another thing? But basically, you roll. So if the natural roll, so leadership 2D on 2D6, you've got your leadership score, and you're trying to roll under that to not run away, and you get a negative for how much you've lost your combat by. People know this, but so if you lose the combat by loads, you used to be needing double ones in order to not run away. But this is different. So you roll your leadership. If the natural roll is higher than the leadership stat of the testing unit's leader, either that it's champion or the hero it's joined, then the unit breaks and flees. If the modified roll is higher than the leadership stat, but the natural roll is lower, the unit falls back in good order. And then if the modified roll is lower than the leadership stat, or you roll a double 1, the unit just gives ground. So there's different options that can happen based on what you roll, but then also your modified and your unmodified leadership. So you might, well, you've been well and truly beaten, but you've got a good leader, so you don't quite go far. You fall back in good order. But if you really, really, really fail your roll and you've lost, you're breaking free, and that's what it kind of breaks down into. And it gives you a nice little break test example and gives you a table there. So if you roll badly, and so you roll well, so you're rolling 2, 3, 4, or 5. You might just move back slowly. You still lost the combat. You are giving ground. You are moving back. You are pushed back, which is new.
Yes, because previously you should have stunned.
Yeah. So if you're losing combat now, you are giving ground. It's not this kind of, maybe leadership test, I'm just gonna stick there. You are going to be giving ground. And then the next bit is you fall
interesting
back
for dwarves.
But this is
because the
good.
previous thing used to be take the loss, but really high leadership, so just stand there.
Just stand there, and you slowly get whittled down to there was one left. So this means that the game still stays a little bit more mobile and gives you further tactical options. As you'll come on to in a moment, a lot of what you're going to do is just follow up. It does mean that you're pushing the units back all the time. I like this. This is really, really good. Just means the game. This is a bit more like a historical game where they try and get a little bit more idea about the way the real fight and push and shove of a real combat would go, whether it be pikes and the pike and shot era, whether it be the mass of a shield ball fighting. This is more like what it would probably be. You got a realistic fantasy game, but you know what I'm getting at. So give ground. I like this. I really like this. It's simple. It's simple to a point. I mean, you're gonna have to be rolling your dice and making some extra maths here, so it's crunchy, but it's also one of those mechanics that I think's got I quite like that. That's different. Certain games have little hooks, and this feels like a new hook that makes it really stand out and really, really different from the previous ones. So I like it. Hopefully it plays as well as it reads. And then the subsection 4 is pursuit. And then you've got different things. So the next section I just screenshotted from the articles. There was so much of it that I didn't want to just kind of trying to get it wrong. So run them down. So when you win combat, you have a range of choices depending on how the enemy reacts. So you can restrain. So you pass this is good. Pass a leadership test to avoid pursuit, and instead reform your ranks for free. So British cavalry, Napoleon Wars, Battle of Waterloo. You've got to say no. Stop. So you've got to pass your leadership to see whether you can control your troops. So the lust of battle, they're not just charging forward and continue to attack. If you don't pass that, your troops are going to they're not going to do what you want them to anyway. So I like that. So you're bringing leadership into that again, something that has a little bit of almost a historical war game feel to it. Number 2, follow up. A unit that gave ground, you can just move forward, and which I think what a lot of people will do because they'll want to finish your unit off so they get the points for that unit if it's scored the same way. And the third one is pursue. So if a unit flees or falls back further, you can try and catch them as you were before, which is the previous kind of standard thing you do. You try to catch them, then you generally destroy them. It doesn't go into detail whether that happens here, I don't think. So, and then it goes on to, again, so we are in the combat. So the wizards can fight in combat as well. So wizards can use assailment spells, and there's 2 examples there. Hammer Hand and Soul Eater. Neither look sort of crazy powerful. We're talking low strength here. You're at 2d3, strength 4 hits. It does have an AP there, but it's casting value 7. So it feels like your mage's got to be in the combat. So that means you would say to me, within the ranks of that unit, there's a lot of talk early days about whether your wizards will be floating around behind units and stuff. This looks to me like they need to be in there, so that puts them at risk of getting chomped. And then you've got Soul Eater as well, which is against a single model in combat. It's only strength 3, it is D3 multiple wounds, so and no ward, no armor save. So you could kind of maybe attack a character and get rid of them if they've not got a ward or regen. Be interesting. But again, cool things, gives you a flavor of the kind of very combat-y type spells you'll get. And that's it, really. That's what we've been told so far. I think next week we're going to learn more about morale and things like that. But that gives an overview. So have you got any thought, before we sort of go into the depths of the overview, have you got any thoughts on that, the combat?
Well, I've not reinvented the wheel, but that's a good thing. I don't think I needed to.
No.
There's some bits there's some question marks on. Spears, pikes, whether they would look at the horde rule, all this kind of stuff. I doubt. I think they'll kick the horde rule because that was a bit disjointed. It'd be quite unbalancing.
I think that's probably covered just by the wider what a ranks type of thing now. I think that's
Yeah,
you can still
possibly.
build them that way if you want, and you get a bonus for it. But
No, I'm just quite excited about it. It looks intelligently designed. It definitely looks like it's been designed in sympathy with what was, as
yeah,
well as what it needs to be.
mhm.
So yeah, encouraging.
Yes, yeah. I'm very encouraged. I think they could have gone a couple of routes with the game overall. Could have gone, let's
Mm,
go super modern. Um, let's just we've had a 8-year gap. Let's just make it a very modern new game. But it's about their target market, and that this underpins all those points I said. I'll come back to this at the end. I'll come back to the end. This underpins it for me. So they're aiming the game at veterans. They're aiming the game at
mm,
us. I think I mentioned this when Jordan was on before. It's not aimed at the total war crowd. It's aimed at people who've played fantasy before, liked fantasy, didn't want fantasy to go probably, and want that style of game again. Even though the many of the mechanics and things are probably out of date now, game design has
mm,
moved on, but they need to keep enough of that there to kind of keep us all happy. And they've got this impossible task of all of these sort of ex-fantasy players that all have their favorite edition, all have their favorite bits from it, and generally have a nice debate about what's the best things. But how do you get that balance? So you'll always find someone, oh, I like this rule, but I don't like that rule. And why is this rule? And we've done it already today with a couple of things like when I question, do they need to bring the wheeling back? I quite like it when I'm playing the game, but also
mm.
is it easier to spin on the axis and things? But until we get a full picture and we played it, we don't know whether there's a real big reason for it needs to be, or whether it was just a design choice in order to nod to people who played that a certain edition and enjoyed doing that. So we will see. But I think a lot of those things are there because they're trying to do a mixture of do amalgamation of all these different rules, but at the same time make something that worked better. So get rid of some of the things that didn't
Mm.
work very well. And I don't mean just the wheeling, because that's clearly there, but I mean the bigger things. I don't think we'll see spells quite as big as Purple Sun there, or
No.
if we do, there's going to be a massive cost to it. Maybe you only do it once a game or something. Who knows? I hope we don't. I hope it's a bit more subtle and things. We just want spells bigger than the ones we've seen in this article. But I really like the idea that it's a fantasy game with some looks like some real movement focus built into it. The rest of it, as we said, is incredibly familiar, and it just feels like a really nice mix of additions. Heavily, I'd say I've got a lot of. If it was a meal, I'd be saying I've got taste of 6th and 8th edition coming through
Yeah.
strongest probably, and maybe some Warhammer Ancients, and then they deliberately said all the way through this is a brand new game. This isn't a new
Mm.
edition of Warhammer Fantasy. This is a brand new game, and I get why they're saying that, and I hope the people that are working on it, if they happen to see this, aren't offended by this. But this feels just like a 9th edition to me. Now it's not the 9th edition we'd have probably had if the world didn't blow up and they did it. It would have been different. So this is a 9th edition so we've been able to sit back and really kind of look back on the game and really analyze what was good, what do people really like, what are their favorite parts, what bits didn't work. And they talked about it quite openly. We're picking the best bits and what they perceive to be the best bits. And it feels like overall they're probably hitting the percentages there of what most
Mm.
people think were the best bits. And they're not going to say it's a 9th edition because that would be a really silly way to market it. But I've got a feeling that maybe that's what they're trying to achieve, really. It's from people that love fantasy and they're bringing back a game that feels like fantasy because it is. This is Warhammer Fantasy. This is Warhammer Fantasy
Mm.
9th edition with a different name. And I'm really, really positive about it. Yes, some things are probably a little bit older in game design than you'd probably do for a modern game, but I don't mind. I want to play Warhammer. I love it from a nostalgic point of view. I hope, though, that we get some new people playing it so it continues
Mm.
to be a good thing. And that'll be my only fear that going for this style of game is that it pleases us grognards, but doesn't get too many of the newer gamers across. I can't see people who started AOS in the last 5 years jumping into this and because they're going to have a shock. I've been building Tomb Kings this week. They've been putting together new AOS models, and they have to
Mm.
put some, when they buy these starter boxes or buy the Tomb King army when it comes out, been putting together those basic skeletons. There's some small contact points there.
Mm.
Don't Yeah, they were. There was some. I swore a lot more than I thought it would do. Getting things to stick, and that's just is what it is. But they're going to have a shock. So they're clearly aiming at that older market. I just hope that there is someone to replace us as we get older and move on. Because I'd like to see the game continue in the future, rather than just be a 1 or 2 edition sort of flashing the pan kind of thing. So the older style of game design is what I want. This is what I want to play. So it's a smart way to do it. I just hope that that doesn't in the future cap people who are used to playing more modern games, more simpler to play games. You want to know why do I have to look on these charts to what I need to roll? Why isn't it in the profile and all those things? I feel like they could have maybe done that a little more here. Not worried. I'm happy the way it is. I feel like probably could have got away with to hit being worked to profiles and stuff rather than having the charts. But it sounds like they really wanted to bring these charts back so people were like, whoa, this is Warhammer. And that's more important to them than just the setting, so to speak. And yeah, this is Warhammer. This is Warhammer, and I'm really excited.
Definitely.
Is that your? Do you have any more thought? I mean, I'm just talking at you here, and I know you're
no. I think
voice wise, but
no. I think we're broadly in alignment on that one. It's just simply a case of we're going to continue seeing more and more as time goes by. I'm a little bit worried about getting stuff painted up in time, but well, am I not? We'll just have to cross that bridge when we come to it. It doesn't help that everything's out of stock.
No, and that is difficult when you're, but you can't really prep for it. And I think that they know that. They don't expect the people who are going to be playing in the first couple of weeks are people with unpainted armies, or people with armies from old editions that kept them. People starting new into it won't be playing straight away, and they'll know that it'll be a slow thing. And if, as predicted, and I made a guess that you're only going to see these 2 armies at launch. You're not going to see all the rest. That's kind of fine as well, because it's got to grow slowly, because not everyone's going to want to play those factions. They'll get a view of it, they'll get a look on it, and then they'll be like, well, I'm going to wait. I'll buy the rules, and I'll hop in when they release orcs or whatever it happens to be. And there'll be some people that start raiding the AOS ranges. I just hope their production can keep up with it, because I just got this feeling it's going to be huge, bigger than they expected. And they got a history of not expecting things to be that big, haven't they? We saw that at the weekend. Bless them. And they do it. And to anyone saying that they do it deliberately, that when it comes to core games like this, Mark, another Jordan Sorcerer interview. He had Mark Wells on, and Mark Wells admitted pretty much that certain games they would be happy to sell out of, and they wanted to build into that kind of anxiety of buying stuff and getting in there quick. But that wasn't to the point where they were ever deliberately trying to sell it in minutes. But when it's a core box game, like I hope these will be, returning items, they may go out of stock. They won't be out of print. And you saw that if you go on the website now, for Legions Imperialis as an example, the starter set is temporarily out of stock. The cards are no longer available online, and they mean different things. One means we've run through our print run, maybe not one coming. The other one means we have sold out, but obviously we probably already ordered a second print run with China, wherever they're getting it from. So, but anyway, I think that's it. Hopefully people enjoyed this kind of bit of a deep delve into the thoughts. I'd really, really love people to, now they kind of listen to this or read through those articles. What do they think the game's gearing up to be? As I said, I just feel like it's Warhammer Fantasy, and that we're talking about changes like you might see an edition change. They'd be big. If it was an edition change, it would be like, whoa, there's quite a few big things here. But there's no more of a change here between 4th, 5th, and 6th as there was between, because that completely changed the magic system, went to a dice pool rather than card based. This feels, like that kind of level of change again. But other than that, it's still Warhammer. I will join the Discord. Go and talk in there. Join a Patreon if you really want to. I really appreciate the assistance if you can afford or inclined to. And then you can get into the extra chats where away from the non-paying members. But still, just join the normal Discord as well. I'd love to see that grow and have people sharing a hobby in there. It's a really nice, friendly place to be. And you can share all your hobby stuff. And it's all free. The app's free. Everything's free. It's nice and easy to use. Dan, anything before we let people go?
No, usual. Just thanks for bearing with us. Listen to me cough throughout this entire thing, and we'll catch you next time.
Well, I hope you're feeling better soon, Dan. I'm sure everyone else does as well. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. Take care. I'll catch you soon.